What's up, core reporters? Welcome back to my channel. Former Teen Mom 2 star got to spilling some tea on her barely famous podcast. And so she talked about how she had been doing some consultations about getting a boob job. So, she's debating between a lift, implant plus lift, etc. But then she ran into a major roadblock that kind of left her feeling quite humbled. Let's take a listen to it and then we'll go back and listen to the rest. And she also spoke about some of her regrets when it came to naming her children and potential names that she had for her daughter, Valley. So let's start off with the audio of her being humbled as she did some consultations about her boob job.
When I tell you I want to get a boob job, right? So I call around, I'm like making these consultations to get a boob job. You know what they told me? They told me I need to lose 40 pounds. Okay. So 40 or 50 pounds, more like 50, but maybe could get away with 40 pounds before they can even operate on me. So that was extremely humbling. And I didn't sign up for that on a Wednesday in the middle of the day. Because I was like, oh, like I've been wanting to do this breast reduction. I've been wanting to do a reduction, implants, lift, whatever it is. Because, right, like I want to do that. And she was like, do you still want to schedule this? And I was like, oh my God. And I'm literally sobbing already. Like the waterworks have started because I'm like, wow, that was really humbling. I didn't realize. I said, we'll still make the consultation because I need to know what I'm expecting to like pay for. Like I have to know what I'm budgeting for. I have to know how long I can save, how like realistically speaking, how long is it going to take me to lose 40 pounds?
So there you go. She was told that she is far too overweight to get that surgery. She needs to lose 40 to 50 pounds. And this was something that obviously hurt her. And so she was crying about it. And listen, I got to say, like, I can't imagine, I really, really cannot. Just like the feeling of like, realizing that. Because I feel like a lot of people, especially, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not American, but I feel like in the States, like, because so many people are so overweight, like, it's kind of like not really seen as like a huge deal, the huge deal that it is at the end of the day in terms of like health ramifications and whatnot. So she's probably like, okay, well, I'm overweight, but I know many people who are, about my size or, even more overweight, and so she didn't realize like, oh crap, like this is something that's going to impact, my ability to survive a surgery, or to heal well after a surgery. And so this was a huge, shocking, rattling wake up call for her, which, it would be for me as well. I got to be honest with you guys. I'm really, I feel like just because, I don't know, like anyway, I don't want to get into that, but like, yeah, I could feel her pain on that, even though we're not the same size. I'm like on the smaller end of the scale. My BMI is like 20 or 20, right? 20, either 19, 20 or 21, but I think it's 20. But still, like you still do always have like this sort of like a concern, you know what I mean? And so to hear that you need to lose 40 to 50 just to be able to qualify, not even, I don't think she said to be in a super healthy range, because overweight people still do get boob jobs. They still do get lipo. They still do get BBL, etc. So like, I feel like they're not even saying like, this is going to get you to like, this weight. Like you're still going to be technically overweight potentially, but like not so much so that it's super dangerous, like it's just, wow. Like, I feel like that would be like a huge, like, tough pill for me to swallow. So, I commend her for like now taking the time to like go, okay, well, now that I'm aware of this, it hurts definitely to know, but like now I'm fully awake and I'm fully understanding and I am committed to losing the weight in order to get to that place. So this just reminds me of the time when she was with Javi. So Javi is a fitness freak. Like he is all about like, gym. And when Kail was with Javi, she was super into fitness as well, because it helps when your partner's into that stuff, to bring you there too. And then for you to get into great shape. I know that Janelle did the same when she was with Nathan. Look at her with Nathan versus look at her with David. Like your partner plays a big role in these sorts of things, to be honest with you. I'll tell you, when I dated two overweight people. And both times, because people always go, oh, I'm a little overweight because of like an illness, this, that. So I like, I'm like, okay, whatever. I dated two of them. Both times I gained at least like 10 to 15 pounds. I'm like, so be careful. Like you really do adapt to the lifestyle of your partner. So, and I say this to say that Kail is very much capable of getting like in shape and everything. I know she says PCOS and whatnot, but it's not 100% responsible for you being this size. Remember, she also has had several children, right? She's got 7 children now, and that takes a toll on your body, on your weight, on, everything. So I think that was at play as well. In addition to lifestyle factors, we've seen the way she eats, we've seen the lack of physical activity. And so we know that, that's just what happens too, when your lifestyle catches up to you and whatnot. But I know that she's capable of it. She's done it in the past, and now she's talking about being able to do it again. She has also mentioned on another podcast, which was the Baby Mamas podcast, And that was that she was considering getting on Ozempic, which I say, you know what? A lot of people used to judge and get really upset about people using Ozempic if they didn't have diabetes. But listen, it's been about a year and a half since like the craze of Ozempic like first came out. And like now supply has grown exponentially in order to meet the demand for everybody. Now they're recognizing that obesity is a chronic disease, a chronic illness or whatever. And their doctors are, validating and using it to help people who suffer from obesity lose weight. So I see, so I think that, okay, well, now if the supply meets the demand, we're no longer going to have a shortage for diabetic people. And new products like this are coming out. Like I know Mongiorno's been out. I know there are other ones. Weight Watchers is developing their own. Why can't people who suffer from the obesity use these things to get to a healthy weight? There is a such thing as a healthy weight, okay? And it just improves your quality of life so much. And some people are not able to reach it on their own without help. And I understand that and I get that. And I think that those people should have access to medication to help them get to that point. The ones that I don't like and did judge are like the Kardashians, for example, people who are well within a healthy BMI, a healthy weight. In fact, on the lower end too, like they're rather thin, using it to get to a skeletal level and like just the issues that causes, to the public and the body image issues, the new beauty standards and stuff like that. I don't like, but people battling with obesity, I feel like they should have access to these sorts of medications. If they're not able to lose the weight on their own, as Kail might fall into that category now, right? As it has been several years that she has been significantly overweight. Anyway, good luck to her on that. I do want to move on now because she did also mention some other things. So she did also talk about her son, Isaac, doing sign language content, which I think is wonderful. I love languages. I think, as you guys know, if you've been on my channel for a while, I am multilingual and I love that, like being able to connect with people who might not speak, English, or who might not speak French, or who might not speak, anything else like Spanish or Luo or whatever, like being able to help people, in these bubbles and connect with people who might not otherwise be able to connect in a certain city, country, place, environment, or whatever. And so for Isaac to be doing that on like a level where it's like he is connecting with people and he is a hearing person, he is helping to connect with people who are who can't hear. I think that is especially, amazing. And I'm really happy to see that he is putting out that sort of content on the internet. I did see his introductory video, and I do hope that the feedback was very positive on it and encouraging, and that he continues to put out that sort of content. I think it's very important for us to be able to communicate with people who cannot hear. And I do wish that sign language was something that was taught more in schools and everything, so that we would all have at least like some level of the basics. So congratulations to him on that. I think it's amazing. Now, going really quickly back into the plastic surgery thing, Kail did also mention wanting to do a consultation about a double chin. I believe she did something on her chin in the past. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't she do Cabela or something? I've heard people say she already had lipo in the chin, but I thought she did Kybella. But again, with weight gain, lots of pregnancies, this, that, and the other, I guess she lost the results and now she wants to do it again. So she's like, okay, well, if my BMI is still too high to do the boob job, what about chin lipo? Because that can be done under local anesthesia in the office. It's not as big of a risk, right? So that's something that she wants to look into. If you're in the medical field, feel free to let us know how you feel about that. Is it true that it's less of a risk for overweight people or obese people to do local anesthesia than general anesthesia? Like, should it be okay for her to get this plastic surgery done? But here's the thing, if you get this done, you're going to be out for a while and you're not going to be able to do the exercise, this, that, and the other for a little bit, I think like 2 months or something. And that'll push back your schedule for your boob job even further out. So you got to decide and prioritize which one you would rather have done. Now, let's get into what she was thinking of naming her kids. So I got a picture of her with her gaggle of kids, and it's just so crazy to think that she would go on and practically double them. So she went from 4 to 7, which is almost, 2x. So here you've got Isaac, Lincoln, Creed, and Lex from left to right. And then she's since added Rio, Verse, and Valley to her brood. And so when it comes to her daughter's name, she said that she was initially thinking of naming Valley Navy. But then Navy started increasing in popularity, which really turned her off. And I kind of felt like, bad. I don't know why people want to be like special so badly. Like, I have a classic name. My name is Grace, and everyone in my family has classic names. It's like, this name, it's a respectable name. Like you can find it always in the keychains and stuff. And it's funny because my nephew, I always find him souvenirs when we go out. So I get him his name in English and his name in the local language, right? And so I did that, and I found it. And I was like, how great is it? How easy is it to find, our names on keychains? We never had issues with that in my family, And so I'm kind of like, it's kind of like, that's nice to be able to have something like to be able to have a recognizable name, like a name that people like and see and like understand, versus, and I'm not saying like, this specifically about her kids, but like sometimes you see these kids' names and you're like, what? Like, I don't know. I wonder what it's like. Like, do any of you guys have like this kind of like, off the wall names, where like, people reactions have always been a little bit mixed or something like that, just a little like, like taken aback. Like, I wonder what it would be like to have those kinds of reactions to your name, But I digress. Anyway, there was another name that she was thinking of, not specifically for Valley, but for a girl in general. So she said that when she was married to Javi, they considered, if Lincoln was a girl, they considered naming him or her, potentially her, Amina. And when I think of the name Amina, I think of Amina Muadi, that designer with the shoes. So they're like, she still likes that name and everything like that. And it still has like some of the same nature or the same roots as Wilhelmina, another name she likes. But she decided against Amina or Wilhelmina for Valley because those are names that she looked at with Javi, and it would be weird to transfer them over to her baby with Chris. I do want to ask you guys how you feel about that. Is that something that has ever happened to you where you really wanted a specific baby name with one person, but unfortunately things did not work out there, and then you got with someone else, and then you went on and used that same name? Does your new spouse know that you went and used that same name that you were thinking about before? Very curious. To me, I don't think it's a big deal. I feel like even from like a young age, don't we always go, oh, like, one day if I have a kid, it's a girl, I'll name it this. If it's a guy, I'll name it that. Like, I feel like you always have an idea of names that you like or like a style of name that you like. So it's like some of these things are just, independent, or like sometimes you're like, oh, like, I'm with this person, they have this kind of last name, it would go so cool with this kind of first name. Like, I don't know. I feel like if you still like it, you still like it. It's just a name at the end of the day. You didn't use it with the other person. So why not? But I also still do understand why she didn't want to use that in her relationship with Elijah. I did know one Wilhelmina in school. She went by Mina though, but yeah, I know one Wilhelmina. She's a lovely girl. So now let's get into the regrets when it comes to naming her kids. This is going to get controversial, I'm sure, because, it does get a little controversial whenever I state my opinions on this. And guess what? I'm going to still state my opinions on it because at the end of the day, I'm free to share my opinions just like you guys are as well. And I do always want to be consistent and honest about how I feel about things, okay? So she says one of her biggest regrets in life is not giving Isaac her last name. And this is when she was answering a fan's question about why her kids with Elijah do not have his last name. So just as a quick recap before I play that clip over there, her kids have a variety of last names, right? So Isaac is a Rivera, Lincoln is a Marroquin, Creed is Larry Lopez, Lux is a Lopez, or is he a Lowry? Lux is a Lowry, sorry. And then the three other ones are Lowrys. So out of her 7 children, only 3 are Lowrys, one's a half Lowry, and the other 2 have 2 other last names. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 last names amongst 7 children. This truly is a mess. Baby daddies aside, this entire thing is a mess and it screams a little unstable, but I digress. So let's take a listen to her talking about the last name thing, and then we'll share some opinions, okay?
Your choice, like a mini body wash or deodorant wipes. If you're on a how comes the triplets don't have their dad's last name? Well, they basically are triplets. Why don't they have their dad's last name? Here's the thing. One of my biggest regrets in life was not giving Isaac my last name, simply because I'm the one that carried him. I'm the one that, like, it's just one of those things where we weren't married. We never got married. And I just feel like he should have been a Lowry. Like, why should a child automatically get their father's last name? Like, I don't understand that. And I am speaking from experience, right? Like, Lowry is my dad's. Well, and I'll get into the whole last name thing because I'm not even a Lowry anyway. So it's like, I'm not a fucking Lowry anyway. So it's crazy because I'm like, if my mom would have just given me her fucking last name, everything would have been solved, right? Or changed my last name when they got divorced, because I think the divorce was like an annulment or whatever. And then Chris's last name is his mom's last name, right? Like, I just feel the only one that I'm okay with is Miraquin, because I was married to Javi and I hyphenated on social media. And so I was like, okay, like that's fine. Like I saw it as forever, right? But like Isaac, first of all, Isaac Irwin, love it. That's my mom's last name. Isaac Irwin is like a brand. You know what I mean? Like Isaac Irwin, what? Isaac Lowry, I also think, or even hyphenated. If I would have just hyphenated Isaac's last name, we were not married, whatever. And so then when I had Lux, I mean, he was a Lopez, and then that whole thing happened. It was like, okay, this is not okay. And then I don't really have a reason other than like, I didn't want to have to go through the name change process. Not that I think I would with Elijah. Like, I think that Elijah and I just don't have a tumultuous relationship. And I can't honestly say that like, if we were to split up, it would ever be tumultuous. Like, he's very even keeled. He's like very mellow. Like, not that he doesn't hold his ground or like stand his ground. He just is not a fighter by nature. I think that he's just like humble, mellow, just even tempered. So them getting my last name just was like, okay, I wish that Isaac was, or at least hyphenated. I ended up, changing Lux and Creed's last name. And then it just made sense for them to all match. So we all match. And you can love it, you can hate it, you can disagree with it, and that's fine. But this is, my family, and I think that's the way that it should be, right? Like, in my family, I think that we should have all matched, and I wish that Isaac matched us, or at least was hyphenated. So would you consider adoption? I literally just said.
So there you go. She wishes that she had given Isaac her last name because she was never married to Joe. And the only last name that she was okay being different from her own last name is Lincoln's, because she at least was married to Javi. Listen, I get it. I am the same way. I don't understand why women have kids by I don't understand why women who have kids by men they're not married to feel like the urge to automatically give the child the dad's last name, especially if you're in a tumultuous relationship similar to what she was like with Chris, or even with Joe. She and Joe were already like half broken up when they were, when she was pregnant. So like, what's the point, And then, like, for example, Taylor, like, or, I think Macy was like this too, where you have these kids by these boyfriends, then you're out there begging them. You're like, I want to have the same last name as my kids. You should have started with the same last name as your kids, like, you carried this kid, you breastfed this kid, you most likely did 99% of the waking up at night with this child and all the stuff for this child. You probably do all the kids' shopping for its clothes, all the teacher stuff, all the doctor stuff. So why doesn't the child automatically have your last name? People go, well, if the dad's involved, it should have his dad. So does that negate that the mom's involved? No, it just means that the dad's involved too, which is like, it should be standard, but unfortunately it's not. And this helps to protect you in the event of that, because unfortunately a lot of men are deadbeat dads. So it's sad to see these women walking around with kids with different last names than them, and the dad whose last name it is doesn't even care about the kid, isn't even present for the kid. Like, it's just so wild to me the way that patriarchy has some of my girls in a chokehold, but I digress. What I do love is how Hispanic culture just automatically hyphenates, like the mom's last name is going to be in there, the dad's last name is going to be in there. I feel like equality, right, in that respect, hyphenate, or it's the mom's last name. So if the mom's married to the dad, all right, you get the dad's last name. But if I'm not married to you, oh, that child's getting my last name. Then there's no conversations about it. No, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Because again, women typically do like the vast majority of child rearing. They do all of the pregnancy. So I just don't get it. Giving, keeping up with that tradition. I get it back in the times and the sexist nature of it, but like in today's times, I think we have moved on beyond that being an automatic thing, but apparently not, judging by some of the comments I get. Now, I do find it kind of interesting. She was talking about having her mom's last name, which is Irwin. She's like, Isaac could have been an Irwin, Isaac Irwin. It does sound good, but Isaac Rivera sounds really good as well. Rivera is a beautiful last name at the end of the day. And I think it's interesting that she kind of has this kind of double standard, right? Because she says, okay, it's okay for Lincoln to have Javi's last name because I was married to Javi, but I wish my mom gave me her last name. Well, your mom was married to your dad, right? And his padlock when you were conceived. So why wouldn't you have the last name, right? By your own logic. I sometimes it's kind of interesting how she is, but I digress. And then your mom has her own dad's last name. So it's, women just never really in history have had our own last names until you go ahead and make one up at the courtroom or something. I do have some friends who have done this. Not here, actually, yeah. So one of my friends back in Ottawa, they did this. Like they got married and they mixed their last names together to make a new last name. And then here in France, because when you become a French citizen, right? And so a lot of my friends are expats like me, and so they're starting to get their citizenship. And I'm so excited for mine one day. Knocking on wood. What happens? You get the option to have like a French surname or a French middle name if you want. So one of my friends, she got a French middle name, and it's Océane, which is beautiful, ocean, in French, obviously. And then my other friend is a guy this time. He just got married and he just got his citizenship afterwards on his own merit, obviously. And I was asking, like, the last name situation. And so he was telling me that they were either going to hyphenate and both have each other like the same, like two last names, and then like give their child their last name, the hyphenated last name, or he would just switch to her last name, which I thought was really lovely as well. Listen, like, it's a new era. There are so many beautiful options out there today. So, don't feel pressured to stick to, tradition. Now, what else? Oh, so another thing she said that stuck out to me about the last name thing, she's, and why the three kids do not have Elijah's last name, is that she learned her lesson after the Chris Lopez debacle, which unfortunately is not true. She's like, I learned after Lux that, like, it's not okay, like the back and forth stuff. Girl, after Lux, right? He was Lux Lopez at first. Then you were having drama with Chris, so you went and changed it to Lux Lowry. The judge granted you that. And then for whatever reason, you went back and you got pregnant again by this man immediately, in the midst of some kind of a restraining order and whatnot. And then you conceive Creed. You claim you learned your lesson after Lux, but then what did you do with Creed? Same thing. Lopez last name. Then you had to go to court, try to get it changed to Lowry to match his brother. And then they just said, you know what? I have had about enough of you. We're going to hyphenate it. This is Lowry Lopez. That's it. I'm not doing anything else. I'm not with your dramatics, basically. So she did not learn her lesson after Chris. That was a lie. Sometimes it kind of feels like she doesn't really think before she speaks, or she doesn't think that we remember her history, because a lot of her statements are very easily debunked more often than not. But maybe I listened a little too intently, but that's my job, right? I listen to everything to, like, summarize it for you guys. So I feel like I always have like a memory of what it is that she has said in the past and whatnot. So a little bit after that clip, she talks about the possibility of adopting and whatnot. And I don't know, like, have at it, girl, if you want to, but I don't know why she doesn't want to break. Like, why do you constantly need to have children? You know what I mean? I don't know. You would think after raising 7 or something like that, you would want some time to yourself, because like she started this as a teenager. Now she's in her 30s and it's still just, all of these little kids and stuff. Like, when do you have time for yourself? But, more power to her if she succeeds at adopting and, everything like that. But alas, I digress. That's your recap, you guys, of her Barely Famous podcast. I want to know what you thought about it all. It was rather juicy. And so, yeah, there's a lot to talk about. And I am looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And as usual, we will chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.